Twitch has accepted the stream. YouTube has accepted the stream. Facebook has accepted the stream. Okay, now I'm gonna get a link so I can send it to you through email. Okay, Facebook has given me a link. I am going to email it to everyone.
Beautiful sunny days.
Yeah.
2 weeks, just sunshine every day.
It has.
Always.
It's been emailed to everybody.
Okay, it hasn't come into me yet. Still no.
You want me to send it to you through your regular text?
Sure.
Okay.
Oh, it just came in.
Okay.
Don't worry.
Mine too.
No. Shoot. Okay. Oh, it just came in. Okay, don't worry. Okay. Good.
Okay.
So is everybody all set with the link?
Yep.
I am.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yes. Thanks.
Can you read the comments? Are they big enough?
I can see your comment, Richard.
Yeah, it's a test to make sure you can read it.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Okay,
Yeah.
how about you, Vicky? Is it
I
big enough?
can read that. Yes.
Okay, cool. Okay, all right, we can start the show then. Okay, when you'll know when the show starts by the timer.
Now I can't see the timer. Okay, there it is.
How long is the show?
There you go. There's the timer. That's how much time is left on the show.
So peace and love, everyone. We have about an hour to talking peace with the Western New York Peace Center. I am your host, Deidra EmEl, Executive Director of the Western New York Peace Center. And we would just like to thank you, Richard Wicca, for producing our show. And we also like to thank WBNY 91.3 FM for having us on Mondays. So today we're going to talk about some updates in Iran and follow up on some of our women that we provided a platform for to talk about the issues that's happening in their countries, and especially in Iran. So today's guest, we have Nadia Shahram. Nadia is a mediation attorney, author, activist, founder, and president of the Coalition for the Advancement of Muslim Women. And we also have Victory Ross, Western New York Peace Center's board chair and peace activist all around, just lover of people and humanity. And so I would like to thank you both for being on with me today.
Thank you.
Well, thank you so much, Deidra, for all you do. And of course, Deidra, our executive director of the Western, and one of her many hats and wraps that she has.
As you
I wish everybody could see your wrap. It's so beautiful.
Thank you. So, we always want to give a land acknowledgement to our Haudenosaunee brothers and sisters, and to know that we are on your side and that we stand to fight with you and hope and support your fight for your territory rights and right, to life as well. So let's get right into it. What values do we want to bring to the conversation tonight or today? Victory?
Well, I almost always go for truth and love, and I still don't want to discount that. But actually, tonight, I want to bring up, it's already in the prescription of women, life, freedom. That women, the importance of women, of the mother, of the feminine, of the yin, or the yin, and life, reverence for life, and freedom. What that means,
right?
That really means,
right.
I second that.
Thank you, and I think I want to bring the words I used earlier was righteous indignation.
Yes.
It's just been on my heart for a while, last few weeks is, that, people feel bad for getting angry. People feel bad for this emotion called anger. But I think when we're angry for the right reasons, when we take our own egos out of things and when we take our own emotions out of things and we look at what is just, and we're angry for the right causes, I think that can move mountains, that can move us to change. And so I guess that value today I bring is it's okay, to be angry for the right reasons and to express ourselves non-violently and positively for change. So Nadia, since the Women's March, one of our, beautiful speakers that, brought in even other Iranian sisters and brother that, expressed in their feelings in song, in skits, and as far as what, they're feeling, what's going on. You talk so passionately. You came with an injured knee at the Women's March in the cold. And because you thought, it was so important for you to say and to express what's happening there and to let people know what's happening and how to support. So I wanted to follow up on that and say, how are things now in Iran, and what's going on?
Well, first, I want to thank both of you for providing this forum for me to speak about Iran. And both of your values that you put up front, woman like freedom, and it's okay to be angry as long as it's a constructive show of anger. It goes hand to hand with what Iranian people, Iranian women have been facing immediately since the death of Mahsa Amini on September 22nd of last year. but more philosophically for the last 44 years since the Iranian Revolution of 1979 that was kidnapped by the Islamic Republic of Iran. That is what they call themselves.
Okay.
And what I was wearing that day at the Women's March that was hosted by you was Iranian flag, and I wasn't sure if I can wear the flag today because I'm sitting down. So I am wearing
I see you.
kind of a wrap that is like a necklace, kind of.
Women's freedom, yes.
Yes, and I don't have anything good to report. I wish I was here talking about thousands of people peacefully demonstrating in Iran, but that wouldn't be a fact. Iranian people mostly now hiding at their homes, and they come out on their balcony or the rooftop only when there is no more lights outside. In the dark, they chant death to the government, and they're freedom fighters. But because of the brutality of response from the government, people are literally, being killed for demonstrating peacefully. So there is a huge setback in Iranian grassroots movement within Iran. And as a result, that has affected the grassroots movements here for Iranian Americans.
Yeah, from what I understand, and tell me if I'm wrong, like you said, it has affected the movements here because people are afraid to, even though they are across seas, they don't want to get their family and their friends in trouble in Iran. Am I correct? So
you are very correct.
Okay. So that's even, more difficult because as we see over history, when the information of what's really happening in a country comes out and other countries begin to sanction that country for their humanity, their atrocities, they start to, it starts to overthrow, it starts to change, make a revolution in that country, as we saw, with South Africa. Once the other nations begin to know like what's really happening there, and begin to sanction South Africa, they begin to make some major changes. What do you think has to happen here, or even just around the world, to make the Iranian government recognize that they have to change their ways?
So it is not that Iranian people are asking for change of ways, because the brutality and the violations of basic rights, it's so grave in Iran and by the government that they don't want the government. It is definitely change of regime in Iran. But to just give you one example of the kind of things that around the world countries, and especially the United Nations, can do to help Iranian cause in Iran. I give you one example. In December of last year, United Nations removed Iran from the UN Commission on the Status of Women. And we were so happy because it is this kind of gestures that gives hope to Iranian people who are losing their eyes. I mean, literally, they are being shot on their eyes, on their legs. And if they can survive that and survive many other things that we can talk about later. So that gave so much hope to grassroots movement. So more people went on the streets around Iran, including around the world, Australia, California, and all the European countries. And in May of this year, just a few days ago, UN named Iranian diplomat the chair of the UN Human Rights Council.
Mm.
I mean, it brought moral outrage to all of us here, especially the person that they have named, Ali Bahrani, is one of the closest people to the government. He is the present ambassador. He is representing the Islamic government. So what UN did in December of last year was overcome by what they did just a couple of weeks ago.
Wow.
It is the mixed signal that Iranian people are receiving. It is from United States, it is from UN, and it is from some European countries, but more so from UN, because United Nations is the watchdog for human rights.
Right.
So according to Human Rights Watch, last year, since this revolution started in September of last year, 522 people have been executed. These are activists who have been executed. And in May alone, the economists have reported that over 200 people have been executed in Iran. So in May, because Islamic government is feeling much more support, perhaps behind the curtains, behind on the media negotiation between the countries, but the Iranian government is feeling much stronger and has begun conversations with other countries that we are hearing reports all the time.
So basically, the rest of the UN is not sanctioning Iran. It seems like it's more of a pacifying than a sanctioning. You know, what do you think, Victory?
It seems like, as you say, not only not sanctioning, but actually giving them power and thus some kind of a kudo, as if they were a human rights bastion. That we can count on them to lead the charge for human rights when they're murdering people. We've been talking about this outside of the radio show, so I'm thinking of all the things that you've been telling, Nadia, that are in the news that people, there's a handful of people getting executed a day, but that doesn't count the people who are just dying in their prison cells or something like that, or shot or killed on the street, or other, unofficial.
Parents are reporting that their young teenagers are missing. So that you can think where they are. Prisoners are dying under torture. Those are not part of those group of execution officially, right? Officially is 522, but unofficially it is much more than that. And there are 22,000 officially of demonstrators and protesters right now in prison. This is an official number, but we don't know how many more, right? There are the atrocities that the government is doing to its own people is beyond comprehension, and it crosses Iranian borders, because they are promoting terrorism all over Middle East, and that terrorism all over Middle East affects we as Americans civilization right here. It affects us with our own citizens, and Salman Rushdie, the writer, was shot. Luckily, he has survived that. But right here at the
Chautauqua Institute.
Chautauqua Institute.
staff,
Thank you, Vicky.
staff.
So
Mhm.
it is not that Islamic government is murdering, slaughtering its own citizens. They are number one, and this is based on credible reports by American agencies. They are number one promoter of terrorism. They have to be condemned by our government openly and clearly.
Well, the only thing I want to say when you say number one, I don't know, there's some very stiff competition all around on that. And actually, why don't you tell what you were just telling about the Taliban also?
Oh, the news was out today, and this is when I say news, I watch Democracy here. I watch quite a few Iranian channels, and one of them is also BBC from England, that Taliban troops, so this is Taliban, more fanatic than Islamic government. I'm not sure if they are any more abuser of human rights than Iranian governments. Their troops have moved very close, and I turn off the TV because I had to be here on Zoom. I turn it off to see they have actually attacked, or they are preparing to attack at one of the borders that they have with Iran, which is the state of Sistan and Baluchistan, which is one of the lowest in terms of economy, and people who live in Sistan and Baluchistan, they are Iranian, but they are not Shia. And Islamic government is not very favorable against anybody who speaks anything but their own interpretation of the religion. So there were talks about Islamic government of Iran not going to help this bordering city with Afghanistan because they prefer them to be dead than to go and defend them. So that is a new conflict that is going to appear itself more problematic for Iranian people.
Now, let me ask you this, and tell me if I'm wrong. Aren't there women in the Iranian government that are, and maybe I have my countries mixed up, but aren't there women supposedly, in politics? And if so, do they just feel disempowered completely?
There are a few
Mm-hmm.
Iranian women in the parliament.
Mm-hmm.
They are wives or daughters of some of the most powerful people around the supreme leader.
Okay.
I hope that answered your question.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah. And it's interesting learning about, different countries, and Middle Eastern countries, because some things, with us in the West, we can go to both extremes, right? Where, because of our ignorance, we can say, oh, women there, there's no women in the government, there's no rights or what have you, there's no, but then at the same time, there are, some women, but, or they have the right to vote, but, what are all these sanctions around their right to vote where they really can't exercise, that right, or they really can't exercise their voice, even though they have these seats or have these rights. You mentioned about terrorism outside of Iran. So we know about of course, the terrorism of the police amongst protesters, but what type of terrorism is happening outside of Iran for those who are supporting?
Iranian government is supporting terrorist groups.
Okay.
In Syria, in Lebanon, in Iraq, in helping Russia to bomb Ukraine. there are quite a few countries that Iran is #1 supporter, and they provide aids, financial support to the terrorism against these particular countries. And it was not until just a couple of weeks ago that Iran actually started conversation and to have a diplomatic relation with its, I guess, number 3 enemy, which was Saudi Arabia, #1 being United States, #2 being Israel. So they have started diplomatic negotiation to start reopening the consulate and embassies in Iran and in Saudi Arabia. At the same time, they have started negotiation now that Syria is back, is being accepted back into the group of Middle Eastern countries, like OPEC, like a pack. They have a pack, and Syria is invited back to that, which Syria was not part of that because of what Syrian government has done to its own people. #1 supporter behind the president of government was and is Iran.
Well, this is why I said, they really have some competition for like who's, the greatest purveyor of violence in the world. I still think it's my own government, as Dr. King said, but I mean, Israel is just definitely, and Saudi Arabia is definitely also very, very, what can we say? Wrong. And the Taliban that you just mentioned, and how people are, we've done different things, studying and working and talking. I was just talking with this young woman in Afghanistan, and as you say, with the Taliban. So the women, I love that, your question though, too, that Deidra, when you asked about, do women have the right to vote?
Iranian women have had rights to vote, I would say, at least 100 years.
Yeah,
because you have to remember, before this regime came and kidnapped the revolution, Iran socially was definitely a democratic country. Politically, it was not. But Iranian women have always been very active by all means. We had the Prime Minister of Education during Shah regime was Iranian, and that was very high position. And we had women in the parliament, in the Congress, and Iranian women today, even with the brutal treatment and discrimination that they have received from the Islamic government, they comprise 60% of higher education in universities.
Right.
But if you ask about employment of those women, it is definitely under 50%.
Wow.
The complexities are just so extreme, because you think about first of all, the history, the history of being one of the oldest civilizations, one of the most broad-minded of civilizations. And then when there was a democratically elected Mossadegh, right? Mm-hmm. And the U.S., this was in the 50s, that the U.S. came in and toppled him and put the Shah of Iran in charge. So that was when we brought them off of the beam from this being a democratic, highly educated, sensitive, and very, the culture, so much beauty in the culture. We were talking about the poetry, the architecture, the literature, just so much, such a rich culture in and ancient culture. Mm-hmm. And now to have women who have been, women had their choice. I can't help bringing up this book of Anahita Mahadevi West. So Dr. Cornel West's wife, Dr. Anahita Mahadevi West, that her dad was a poet too. But anyway, so she just wrote this book, and it includes some poems that she wrote a long time ago, some very recent, and a essay that she wrote as this is all happening now. The women like freedom, the new revolution now, and it's so poignant when she writes about how it was that women. It was up to women. Do they want to wear a headscarf or not? Do they what does she call it?
Rusari,
Rusan, yes.
Rusari, a scarf.
Rusani. Or do they want to wear a chadar? That is all right. And so then she says, it's not that this is against, religious traditions or habits for women, but it's about the choice of the women to observe religious different dress or not having that choice, That's why women like freedom and the courage that these women have shown that are out again and again, even though the morality police are out there, and when the journalists who reported on Mahsa Amini's death, that they are being charged and held, right? Is that right?
Yes. They are very young female, two journalists, Nilufar Hamidi and Elahe Mohammadi. They are charged. So their crime is, just listen to this, collaborating with the hostile US government. So they're calling the two women who reported what they saw themselves has happened to Mahsa Amini and in the hospital. They are being charged, and they are according to the government, they are spreading propaganda against the establishment of Iran, of the government, and they are facing death penalty. They don't have attorneys. Of course, they have been proven guilty behind closed rooms and in the revolutionary court, where attorneys are not allowed, and the crime doesn't really need to be proven by any standard. It is more hearsay based on another hearsay. And these two women are not saying that they didn't do it. They're saying that they reported because they took an oath as journalists to report on actual events, and that is what they did. And I don't know why they have not been executed already. And I think that the government is waiting for some special occasion to use these two as an example, but they are facing death penalty among many others who have talked openly about what the government is doing to its own people in Iran.
They're basically accusing them of treason. You're collaborating with the enemy.
Yes.
And reporting the news.
Yes, and they have to throw in God or something related to religion and God to actually make it more palatable, make it more, like understanding by still 20% of the population who might be still supporting them, because very clearly 80% of people, for many reasons, are opposing the government. And the reasons, it doesn't have to be that economy is one of the worst that Iran has ever faced. It doesn't have to be just with human rights violations. It doesn't have to be with the killing of the environment. It doesn't have to be only with the fact that 146,000 people died as a result of COVID. These are not the numbers that you may find on internet. These are the numbers that you get from Iran directly, and it might not be in English also. So people are not against the government only because they have totally ruined Islam. They have totally misinterpreted a religion, and it's for many other reasons. And the bomb that the Islamic government has created for the last 44 years will explode. It's just that we wanted to explode today, so less people will be killed, less mothers, less children, our daughters, our grandchildren's ages are being killed in Iran. So we are hoping for countries such as United States to stop dealing with Iran.
So what can American citizens do individually and as coalitions or organizations? How can we make noise to our government to help make this change?
One of the noises that we can make right now is to write directly to UN and ask them to retract their choice of the ambassador of the Islamic government to be the representative and report on human rights. That's like immediately on the table.
What is the exact title of what this person is, their name and their exact title?
Okay, so his name is Ali Bahraini, Bahreini, and his title is the chair of the UN Human Rights Council.
Human Rights Council.
It's like they have given the lamb, the sheep, they have offered it to the wolf.
Yes. I feel like the UN really has to be the one, because the thing is with the US, so first of all, we're bomb happy anyway. We already know that. Our military, where we spend really about almost as much as the whole rest of the world put together. We spend as much as the next 9 countries altogether, but yet those are the only big spenders on military. So there other countries really don't have a lot to spend on military. So here we are, the most militarized. And so if the answer is to just go in, and we're just back to that, and we're talking about not violence, nonviolence. So it's for the UN to do. So this would be the first and the least, the easiest thing to do. Not even sending in troops, things like that. Just get that guy off of the UN Commission for Human Rights. Heading it up is ridiculous. And the other one I'm thinking of is, I actually met Shirin Ebadi. So Shirin Ebadi, is Nobel Prize winner. She won it, I don't know what year it was. Do you remember?
I thought it was 2000, early 2000.
Yeah, so it was quite a long while ago. And she tells, I'll never forget hearing her say, that when she was, involved in the government, she's one of the people, women power.
She's attorney, human rights attorney.
Yes, and so as an attorney and as a human rights person, that when she was, blowing the whistle on them and then getting persecuted herself, and she left in exile, they're threatening her family, and she says, "I love my family, but I love human rights more. I love my country, but I love human rights more." So,
there are credible reports and actual voices of some of these protesters from prison that they were able to send it abroad, or they have sent it to their families, and from the mothers of these youngsters who have been killed, that continue your fight for human rights. Don't stop with my death or my child's death. continue. I mean, these are strong voices.
Yes.
But you know what? Even though I have said it in the past, recent past, we don't need American government to okay the revolution, but
right.
we kind of need the American government to support the people, not the government.
Right.
Stop all negotiation with Iranian government. And there are reports, and these are last few days reports, that Iran and American representative, they have started negotiations on nuclear
That's another
capabilities
thing.
of Iran. So these are all like a dagger in the heart of those 522 that in last year, since Mahsa Amini was killed. This is like a dagger in the hearts of the families of people who have lost their lives for freedom. So I'm asking today that Iranian people do need American people to give them encouragement to continue your fight for freedom and democracy. But American government must stop supporting a government that our troops, Vicky, you were mentioning about our spending budget for militaries, right, overseas. We will actually, in the long run, will save money because the terrorism is being supported and initiated by Iranian government in these countries that we are spending money to defend.
Just as a historic note, I need to say that we worked hard to get the government to approve the Iran nuclear deal in the way back when. I want to say that was like, what was it, 2015 or something like that? I think it was. And then when Trump came in and he shut it down anyway, where that could have been something because we talk plenty about nuclear. I don't want to get too far into that topic. But it's just the thorniness of all of this, and this is why we need the UN to and for the U.S. government to support the people, and for us to support the people, to help people understand. And I always look to the world community, the world, both the diplomatic community and just the entire world community, which with all the communication now and the internet and everything, more and more there is a world community that people, can make, through social media, that people get their voices heard and find each other in different ways and continents that, so if we put pressure on the UN and also pressure on our government, I want to go back to this one, is to strengthen and empower the UN more instead of the way we've got it designed so it can't do anything, just like our own government,
I think United States has lots of influence on UN because United States is a democratic country, and even though it may not be true to the world a democratic country, but it is definitely in the eyes of those who sit at the UN. But I just want to say that when our President Biden was a senator, and this is the time, of course, he was much younger, and it was South Africa that was going through the uprising and the revolution, and the South African government came and wanted, this was during a session that they were presenting in front of the Senate to gain support for the government. President Biden, well then Senator Biden, with tons of compassion. I mean, you could see it was just pouring out of his mouth and his face very strongly. He said, we support democracy. Therefore, we support the people of South Africa, not the government. Why should we support you? I mean, when I look at that, which is available on YouTube, I love it. And I wish we could say that as a president, as a high-ranking official from our US government today about Iranian people. Sorry, guys, I get to.
No, don't.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Righteous indignation.
Yeah, I mean, but that's, you know, that's what it takes. I didn't know that he said that, but that's what I'm, you know, that's what I'm referring to, like what needs to happen. Because once, and you know, I'm not sorry to say it, but I'm sorry to say that when you are dealing with the pockets, whether it's the Iranian government's pocket, America's pocket, you know, we are dealing with wealth, resources, money, when it comes to whether it's to war, whether it's these different countries are working together, UN working, you know, we have to go always back to the root, you know, because the question is, what do we gain? You know, what does the UN gain for putting that person in that seat? You know, what does, you know, different countries gain for supporting, you know, like you said, Iran is, supporting with weapons. Iran is supporting, you know, they're not going to say anything. They're not going to sanction Iran because Iran is supporting them, you know, with things that they feel that they need, right?
Oil.
So go ahead, Victory. Go ahead.
Oh, I just said oil because oil just gets into the conversation. Money, oil, you know, different things like that.
But we can't underestimate that because we may, you know, our heartstrings, you know, we're looking at the people, but it's beyond the people. It's, you know, people are just the sacrifice in between. You know, people can be reborn, right? You know, we can repopulate, you know, some of these countries think, okay, we can repopulate, you know, this country as long as we get such and such power, you know, and such, you know, resources. So to me, it's astounding to have over 200,000 people in prison for protest.
22,000.
22,000, I'm sorry.
22,000 officially.
That's still a number that's astounding for protesting.
Right.
You know, because, you know, the way you would think about it here, I would just say, I'm speaking for everyone here, is that, you know, well, they can't imprison all of us. That's like one of our main, well, they can't, you know, put us all in prison. Well, my goodness, Iran is really trying to put everyone in prison that have ever said anything.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that's
just to give you, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
Just to give you another statistic, until before September, when Mahsa Amini was killed and the entire uprising and hopefully revolution started, Iran was number 2 in terms of executing people. Number 1 was China.
Wow.
But
okay.
From the official evidence, it looks like Iran has gone ahead of China. This is one of those statistics, as Vicky, you were mentioning before, is not so pleasing to Iranian to hear this. And if a Iranian protesters today leaves home, she or he must say goodbye to her loved ones, because you don't know if you will come back or not. And sadly, there are cartoons that is going around in social media that mothers, as they are putting the backpack on the back of their child, 11, 12, young child, young teenagers, and they are also putting a gas mask, because children and middle schoolers, especially girls around Iran in schools, they have been gassed. So the cartoon shows that the mothers are packing also a gas mask in the backpack, and also the food, because children, again, by children, I mean young teenagers, they have been reported sick, they get nauseated, and they faint, and they have to be taken to emergency room after eating food at the school cafeteria. So it's a cartoon, but I think that we all know that when we joke about something, we are really talking about reality of the situation, of the social situation, that a mother has to tell, her child, have a good day, and here is your food, make sure not to touch the food, and here is your mask.
And these are fear tactics. Fear tactics.
And this has happened in 100 schools that have reported officially around Iran, and mostly, if not all, in girls' middle school, because that's the age that girls are getting involved in going on the streets and shouting about they want freedom.
In middle school? So middle school, is that the same thing as high school in Iran, or are you talking about 7th, 8th graders?
I am talking about all girls school, and no, it would be more than 7 and 8, more like 9th graders.
Okay.
All girls school in Iran, 100 schools, they have reported about this, their children, fainting on the classroom and things similar to that.
So bring it back to, you said some things that we can do to write to the UN to get Ali Bahrani.
Yes.
To be off of that he should be off the Human Rights Council. Off.
Definitely off.
Off.
But they have chosen him as the chair.
Right. So not only not chair and just be off the committee. So that's one thing. Also, President Biden to take the same kind of a tactic as he did, and say we support the Iranian people because we support democracy. Mm-hmm. And you have an event coming up too, right?
Yes, we have an event on June 16, and it's going to be at their meeting house, which is located in the village of Main Street in Williamsville. I'm not sure of the number of the building, but it is called the Meeting House. And we have held events in the past regarding Iran. We are partnering with of course, Peace Center, with you, Western New York Peace, and also with our artists around the Western New York. These are poets, these are literates, they are artists, and we are going to have music and some revolutionary songs. So the program is being made as we are having this Zoom meeting tonight.
Wonderful, absolutely. Excuse me. And how can people get more information about the event on the 16th?
Very soon, information will be available to you regarding putting it on your website, and of course it will be in my own personal website. And it is on the 16th of June, which is a Friday. It is at 7 p.m. It is open and free to community members, but especially to freedom lovers and people who want to read a poem, and we would like the poems and poetry to resonate with freedom and democracy and women.
So it's 5658 Main Street, Williamsville.
Thank you.
5658 Main Street in Williamsville. So it's just a little bit past the center, right? Just a little bit past the center of Williamsville. Anyway, it's 5658.
It is in Williamsville, yeah. It is right on Main Street, and there'll be plenty of parking, off-street parking, and also behind the building parking. And again, it's free and open.
And I also hope that you have this beforehand, so that if you want to, because Anahita wrote about things that are all about women, life, freedom. So much of the Iranian poetry, Rumi, the one that you were talking about, I want to read that poem.
I was going to ask if you can share one of the poems with us, Victory.
Oh,
well, okay, go ahead, Vicky.
Well, I was reading it because that we're doing this, and we just got it yesterday. So,
Vicky, do you want me to talk about Sadi, and then you get ready for what you're going to read from the book?
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Yeah. So we were talking about Iranian human rights and social consciousness. Sadi, who is from 10th century Iran, and he's very famous. And his poem about human connection and humanity, it lays at the door of United Nations. And basically that poem is about, we are all children of Adam, and we are all connected to one another, like limbs of a body. If one part of the body is hurting, it must affect the entire body. And if it doesn't affect you, then you should not call yourself human. So that is an Iranian poet from 10th century. So Iranians are very much into literature and poem and poetry about social consciousness. And this is the time that our good friends, poets in Buffalo, are going to come together to recite regarding freedom.
Well, it will be wonderful. It will be a very, very special event. I would just say in this book, there are so many different poems. Some of the titles are Words, A City of War, the ones that won't be back, Girl's Dream, so many very touching ones. But I want to read this one called Seeds, because I know that a lot of times we think about seeds, and seeds are so symbolic and so hopeful. So I want to see and I have not read this yet. So I want to see what she had to say about seeds. These yellow leaves painting yesterdays, they scream of birth, render my footsteps. They scream of birth under my footsteps. Do they still breathe? Are they only a fragrance of time, or just a memory that once lived? Do they mourn the red rose? The seeds are brewing. Let me read that one more time because I need more light in here. I'm sorry to admit. Seeds, these yellow leaves painting yesterdays, they scream of birth under my footsteps. Do they still breathe? Are they only a fragment of time, or just a memory that once lived? Do they mourn the red rose? The seeds are brewing.
I hope this is not in comparison to these, young lives that in Iran have been lost as paddles on the pavement, on the streets, and are they gone? And I hope not. I hope that Iranian revolution gets its little bit of push from people around the world, including Iranian and non-Iranian, including people from around the globe, and especially from Buffalonians, from Americans, that we cheer for democracy within our own borders. We want to be the ambassador of that for all people outside of our borders.
Right.
Mm.
Yeah, I think, that, like Nadia said, I hope that it wasn't, but it could have, talked about, all these young people. I think that's one of the things that surprises me the most. And it's not surprising, but it is surprising to murder teenagers, these seedlings of, of new minds, new thoughts, new ways of being and thinking, to murder them in the midst of protest, in the midst of speaking their minds, instead of, cultivating their minds, to just want it to stop. And they think that by physically silencing them, that they will be silenced. But the poem said, is there still life there? And I believe there is. Because one thing about seeds in the ground, we cannot count the many. We cannot count the many. And there's so many there that when we think of ground is barren, with the right watering, the right sunshine, the right caretaking, seeds grow up without us even doing much at all. So it's the same thing with our youth, that, hopefully we can water, we can, shine upon them, we can lift their voices up, through expression, through art, and through just putting their voices out there. Like, in a protest, they say if you don't have a microphone, you have the one person, speaking loud and the other people repeat.
Right.
Repeat.
People's mic.
Yeah, we got to be a people's mic for our youth, be a people's mic for Iran and our Iranian sisters, be a people's mic for our children. So thank you so much for joining me today. And we are with you, Nadia. We are with you, Iran, a movement for freedom, life, and women. And, if you'd like to get more information, please go to our website, WNYPC.org, or our link tree, linktree/WNYPC for more information, to let us know if you want to get in contact with Nadia, or how you want to help. Also, join our Resist Militarism committee and see how you can join the support for this movement. So thank you so very much, Victory and Nadia, for joining me. And I hope that that we all can be the change we want to see in the world. So we've been talking peace with the Western New York Peace Center, with Women, Life, Freedom. And thank you for listening. Peace and love.
Thank you.
Peace and love.